All right, everybody. So I'm going to issue you a new challenge, but the rules are now you have to have a takt time by takt zone, and you cannot move to your next area until the takt time hits. So let me show you this video, which is one of my favorites. This is the kind of discipline that we're looking for here. These are the Romans fighting against the Gauls. Keep your eye on that guy when he gets out of formation. That's the takt time beat. He's out of formation now. Okay, so we won't exactly crucify people for getting out of line with this, but the same thing, the same logic applies. We want everybody in formation. Once we've created the plan with the trade partners, we want to stay in that formation. And just like the Romans, they used to use this in military tactics. Once that whistle blows, the next people are up, we move to our secondary areas. And so we want to stay in formation when we play this. I'll go ahead and show you how we're going to do that. First and foremost, let's head over here. I'd like everybody, I'm going to scoot here in between you. What do you want to beat? What time do you want to beat in this next round? What did we get before? It was 13 minutes and 19 seconds. Who said 8? You didn't get 8, you got 13, 19. Oh, you're saying you want to beat 8?
I want to beat 8.
Okay, so we have one over here. So we want to beat 8 minutes. And we have one that says 5. You want to say 7? Okay. 10. Okay, let's look at this. I will say that, do you want to go hit such a small number right away? Maybe, maybe not. You know, is this too big of a goal where you're not stretching yourself? Everybody close your eyes. Raise your hand if you want to go for 10. Raise your hand if you want to go for 8. Okay, raise your hand if you want to go for 7. Okay, raise your hand if you want to go for 5. Okay, so 10 is out. Whoever said 5, make an argument, and then we'll vote one more time. Okay, go ahead. You can open your eyes. What is your argument for 5?
We can do it half of the time and more. And we're gonna be real organized and really hope that we make it.
Okay, so you think you can make it. Okay, what about 7? Who brought that up?
It's like the half of the time we did it the last time.
Okay, so it's halfway. You think you can beat it by half? Using the Takt Production System? Who has an argument for 8?
I think that because we have enough time if something like happens in a wrench, and we have minutes to just recover and don't use another.
Okay, so this gives you a little bit more flexibility, but still you're beating the 13-18, right? Okay, everybody close your eyes. If you want to vote for 8, raise your hand. Okay, if you want to vote for 7, raise your hand. If you want to vote for 5, raise your hand. Okay, all right, open your eyes. So the majority was for 8. 8 is how many seconds? 480. Yeah, it's 480. Yeah. So this is the goal. I'm going to introduce a formula. And if you've been through any other takt training, you'll know it's takt wagons plus takt zones minus 1 multiplied by the takt time equals the duration, right? I'd like to run through this formula, and I'd like to find out what would my takt time need to be to actually meet your goal of 480. So we know what duration we're targeting, right? So now we would need to know how many takt wagons. I can just use worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and slab on grade would be 10. So worst case you have 10, but you can definitely do better with prefabrication. Let's go ahead and ask the question about takt zones. How many zones, just from a builder's perspective, would you want to break this up into? First thing you do, you're on the project, how many zones? So 2, so if you did 2, you could do this side, or this side, and this side. Okay, who else had a 6? Okay, how would you do the 6?
These both are one zone, then one zone, one zone, one zone, one zone, one zone.
Yes.
Like the complete 6 zones.
Okay, so it'd be zone 1, or however you did it, zone 1, move, zone 2, move, zone 3. So we also know, based on the Takt Production System training, that if you have more zones, you can go faster. So let me go through the production laws really quickly. This is going to be a high-level overview. You'll learn this if you take the full training, is that Little's Law says, and that's in Nicholas Modig's book, This is Lean, in Little's Law says that the smaller your batch sizes, which means for us the more zones or batches you have, the faster you're going to go. The more level the work, the faster you're going to go. The more you finish as you go, the faster you're going to go. The other thing is the law of variation. The more stability we have, the faster we're going to go. As variation increases, your project duration increases as well. The law of bottlenecks, which is that you will have process bottlenecks or trade bottlenecks, and once you optimize or improve one, you'll have another. Real quick, what are our bottlenecks right now from your observations? The roof and the grade beam. You switched it, but yeah, it's the grade beams. Yeah. So the next round it will be the spot footings because you switched the sequence. But so that's the law of bottlenecks at work. And when we go make them go faster and we split that up into 2 crews, then another bottleneck will appear, and another and another and another. And the last production law that I want to talk to you about in brief is Kingman's formula, which means that your duration in a specific area is the cycle time plus the variation that you experience plus the productivity level of the crew. So that means if it took me 18 seconds to install one of these trades and I'm fully productive and I have nothing in my way, that's great. But if somebody else came over and wasn't used to it and they had a lower productivity rate, it might take 20 seconds. Plus, if something happens like a defect or something, that's probably another 2 seconds. So it's not the original duration. The duration extends as you add variation and as productivity levels and crews drop. So you see all of these at play in the Takt Production System. The reason I mention that is because if you said 2, Samuel, which is not a bad answer, that does mean it might take longer. And when you go to 6, it does mean it can go faster. Now, somebody might say, well, we can do 12 or 24. Here's the thing that you have to consider. What is the SSU, or the standard space unit? It's the unit that is divisible throughout all of the other zone sizes, right? It's the common denominator, right? The common denominator here, or your standard space unit, is a column square. You can't get any smaller than this. I mean, technically maybe, but in this simulation, the smallest unit that you can takt is this column square, right? Practically for this simulation, maybe not theoretically. So you want to have divisions of that. So you could have 24, or you could have 12, or you could have any multiple of that standard space unit, right? So we have 2 and we have 6. Does anybody have any other suggestions for the zoning? 4? Because that is divisible by this, right? You could do 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so the question would be, if you're a trade, do you want to do this whole thing or this whole thing, if we have 2, and then move on and everyone else waits for you? Or would you rather do this smaller area and then when the takt time hits, move on and move on? Do you want to do smaller areas? So everybody close your eyes again. Raise your hand if you want to do 2 zones. Raise your hand if you want to do 4. Raise your hand if you want to do 6. Everybody open your eyes. You all voted for 6. So when we're looking at this formula, by the way, I'm just giving you a rough idea of how the formula works. Let's do some math here. I want to find the takt time and for 480. So let's do this. So -1, so that's 15, right? Even -1. Okay, so the takt time equals 480. If I know how to do this right, I just divide that by 15. Oh, you're right. You're on top of it. So based on your goals, we would at least have to hit a 32-second takt time. Agreed? So we're about to go through this spreadsheet, and what I'm hearing from y'all is that if we hit a duration that's under 480, we're good? Yes? This 10, we can probably do better by prefabricating, yes? 6 zones is what you're shooting for, so I would like to encourage us to use 6 zones. And if we're under a takt time of 32, we think we can make that. Now, I'm not saying that's what it'll end up being. We'll actually go here in just a minute. First, I'm gonna let you break this down. But when we come back, after you break this down and you think about it and you think about your prefabrication, that'll help us to know how many takt wagons you're actually going to end up with. Then we'll go through and we'll do this analysis. And when you come back, I want you to write down what are your takt zones, what are your takt wagons, and I do want to say these wagons will also show how you buy out the system, and then your takt time. What that will do is set us up for a really killer plan, and then I'll be your superintendent. We'll implement these new strategies that we talked about and really see if we can beat your target. All right, so we'll pause this for a minute and we'll give you time to do some planning. Now that you know you have 6 zones, now you know that we have to hit a takt time of each space 32 32 seconds. It may end up being different, but we at least have to get 32 seconds. And now that you know that you could possibly speed up by prefabricating, I want you to touch and feel, except for Yayo, where are you? Right, I'm just kidding. Touch and feel and see what would you do this round for prefabrication. So if you've got it, let's break, and I'll let you go ahead and do that for 10 minutes. All right, everybody, so great job. I want to point out a couple of things as we go through, and they took the advice. They have the site laid out over here with the grid system, so really nice layout. It looks like this is zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, 4, 5, 6, so it looks like you're heading that same flow, but you're going to have more zones, right? The reason you want more zones is because Little's law says the smaller your batch sizes are, the faster you'll go. That's a scientific and mathematical certainty. The other thing is you analyze your prefab. Looks like you're going to stick with the same method. Olga, I want to make sure we have a good system for this. So you feel like you'll be successful with this rigging, okay? And then Emilio, I'm looking for, just like they say on the British Bake Show, I'm looking for perfection. You know the British Bake Show? It's a cooking show where I want it to be perfect, right? It looks like all the supplies over here, Alondra, are really nice. They're going the right direction. Be careful with ones like that. So your laydown is ready to go. What we need to do is get to a point, now that we know kind of your general plan and we know what your prefabrication plan is, we need to analyze the leveling of this system. So I'm going to do some work up here on the board, and I feel like you'll really enjoy this part because this is how we really create flow in the planning phases of this simulation. So first and foremost, I have over here to the left the actual activity, then the overall time, meaning, and this is a common technique for the whole floor, this is how long that trade takes to complete throughout the whole floor. Then how many of the things are we talking about? How many grade beams, how many spot footings are there, right? And if you divide that, or if you do some math there, so 61 divided by 35 means that it takes 1.74 seconds to install one spot footing. It takes 6.1 seconds to install one grade beam connected to the system. Now we're going to flip those. So we have a production rate. You chose 6 zones by nearly a unanimous vote, 6. And so all I did was say how many of the things are in one of your selected zones. And then I get a duration. Now you remember one of the production laws was the law of bottlenecks. When you look at this, where are your bottlenecks? Grade beams. Yeah, so grade beams, which we noticed before, it takes 61 seconds. If you flip the two, then it would be spot footings. These two are interchangeable, but basically it was the second connection of footings that was a bottleneck. And then the second one, the secondary beams are a bottleneck from a duration standpoint. We have some work here to do. We get to optimize our bottlenecks.